not hyperbole. It's about being made in America. A lot of that has to do with this industry.
They had said that they believed these numbers were going to be extraordinarily elevated, and certainly they are very elevated today. And I would expect to hear the president say Putin's price hike once or twice during this speech, given that has been the way that they have been talking about this since this invasion started. Of course, gas prices had been going up before this.
Putin's invasion of Ukraine has driven up gas prices and food prices all over the world. The two largest grain producers in the world, Ukraine and Russia, are not doing what they usually do, so everything's going up. We saw today's inflation data. 70% of the increase in prices in March came from Putin's price hike in gasoline.
We were covering inflation long before Putin invaded Ukraine. Inflation in the United States in the last year is preceded this attack, and some people hear the president and the White House blaming all of this on Putin and think, that's just not accurate. That's just not factual.
Folks, the list goes on. I'm starting to bore myself here, but this is important stuff. I think.
You can't really put it all on the war and Putin. I get that we've seen sharp spike in energy and food prices since then, but we're seeing rising prices everywhere, and particularly in housing with rents and shelter in places like apparel that have been rising for the last few months. That's much broader than just what we've seen as a result of the war.
The very large increase in March was driven by a very large increase in energy prices and gas prices, and that is a direct result of Putin's invasion and Russian oil coming off the market.
Now you got infrastructure decade, 10 years.
The White House says those price jumps are happening because of the war and what they call, quote, Putin's price hike. But remember, prices started spiking well before the war in Ukraine began. CBS News polling out this week shows nearly 70% of Americans disapprove of President Biden's handling of inflation. 66% say the higher prices have been difficult or a hardship.
The increase in prices obviously long predates the war. We've been seeing inflation rise for most of the past year. In fact, for the last 6 months, inflation has been above the Fed's average target of 2%. So this is not just about the war. This is about persistent supply chain problems, and it's about the fact that demand is really, really strong, in part because of policy choices that we've made.
Now, as I was campaigning here and I made that commitment, I don't think anybody heard it, but we're back. We're back, and my name is Joe Biden. I work for Congresswoman Axney. There she is. I learned a long time ago when she says, I just say yes. I say yes. Right?
Just how much inflation is soaring, and the numbers are staggering. The Consumer Price Index jumped 8.5% in March from 12 months earlier. That is the biggest year-over-year growth in 40 years. You have to go back to 1981 to see a similar jump in the costs of food, gasoline, and housing. As the AP frames it, the economic squeeze is effectively wiping out the pay raises that many people have received, and that's probably just the beginning.
It ain't good. When you look at these numbers year over year, you said it, we have not been in this place in 40 years. And the biggest increases, it's gas, it's rent, it's food, all the things you need to buy every day. So the people who are already the most economically vulnerable are going to be hit the hardest. And you mentioned it. We've talked a lot about the good news about wages being up so much over the last year. When you account for inflation, hourly wages are actually down almost 3%.
I grew up in a family, not a joke, where if the price of a gallon of gasoline went up, it was a conversation at our kitchen table. It mattered. It mattered with my mom and dad. It made a difference. We felt it.
That unlike for some of us, the thing of Encyclopedia Britannica is a thing of a long time ago. And now the kids need to be online to help get their homework done. Broadband wire, why do we care about that? We're going to lay it across the country because we know that our seniors might need the benefit of telemedicine. If it's too far to get to a hospital, our small business owners need access to high-speed broadband to run those small businesses that are part of what fuels America's economy.
Now let's go to the year-over-year numbers. 8.5%, usurped 7.9%, 8.5%, remains a 41-year high. You have to go back to 1981. And finally, we're looking at year-over-year core, expected up 6.6, comes in at 6.5, taking out the 6.4%. So up at 6.5, we are now looking once again to comp back to 82. That remains the same.
These hot numbers, and we thought we were going to get this, Maria. Year over year, the expectation was 8.4. We came in 8.5% year over year. 8.5%. That is the annual rate. This is the highest that we have seen since January of 1982. This is over a 40-year high for consumer prices. Okay, this is March CPI. Year over year for the core, 6.5% for the core. We were looking for 6.6%. We came in at 6.5%, so that's a little bit weaker than expected. But again, these are numbers that we have not seen for the core numbers since 1982.
But I think if anybody looking at geopolitics right now does not recognize the importance of energy independence and of freeing ourselves from autocratic, vicious plutocrats, then they're not paying attention.
Well, we're talking to Venezuela. Last time I checked, not exactly Pope Francis about getting oil, right? So we're not above talking to guys like that or talking to Iran.
Well, that's true, but at the same time, you're talking about a world in which resources are flowing into Russia.